for having me. I'm really excited. My name is Marie Dagenais-Lewis, and I am a disability rights art activist. I was born disabled with a rare disease called multiple hereditary exostosis, and I've been an artist for a little over a year now. If you would have told me a few years ago that I would have made a career on being an artist, I would have thought you were just messing with me because I had never drawn anything. I had never really been able to do art because I used to like to dabble in things like watercolor and acrylics, but the reality was that my conditions made that a little impossible for me. I would have a lot of fatigue. The cleanup process wasn't even really worth all of the amount of energy that I would spend making this thing. And then financially, it wasn't even feasible for me to continue to be an artist. And so my life really changed in 2020 when I learned about digital art. Digital art has created a whole new world for me to where it made art completely accessible. And that's one thing I'm going to show you guys today is we have on the screen, I am screen sharing my program called Procreate. And this is just the cover of my newest coloring book, which is coming out in less than 2 weeks. Chronically Spooky too, and everything that I made from the coloring book, from the covers, the pages, everything was designed in Procreate. Everything was hand drawn. Everything was made with all of these different brushes and options. This is just one example of what you can create with Procreate. There's watercolor, there's inks, there's oils, there's textures, there's light. It's like there are so many elements to art that digital art has created such an amazing way for us to be able to not only use as a therapy, but we can also use it for advocacy. We can use it to create our own career. For me, myself, like I said, I'm an art activist. I'm the creator behind Rare Advocate, and all of my art speaks about disability. From the culture to ableism to living life with a chronic, rare, invisible disability, my art always has a deeper meaning behind it because it's kind of my therapy. It's how I can communicate better and communicate in a way where people can understand what I'm saying without feeling attacked. I'm neurodiverse, and so I'm kind of direct at times, and I noticed that when I would try and talk about ableism, people would feel like it would be a personal attack as if I'm really being malicious in trying to educate. But then once I started to create art about it, it just created a whole new form of communication that really, it broke down a lot of barriers in my own life with my relationship between my parents, my relationship with my husband, my relationship with myself. It's something that it's changed my life. And then beyond my own therapies that I've had, I've been able to create my own career. I've published my first coloring book 2 months after I was wrongfully terminated from my old career. And it's really awesome here. I could show you guys real quick. Here's my first coloring book, Chronically Spooky. It's available on Amazon, and it's just 21 pages of hand-drawn things that I've made. And so this is like all ink. Okay, you can't see it. Sorry, I tried. But so it's awesome because I made all of this on an iPad, and it's like a physical copy now that people all over the world have. And what's so amazing about also being able to create art that other people can actually purchase, like through my store, through commissions, through my books, is it's representation that didn't exist before. That's one of the biggest goals with my art, is that I can create the representation I never had. My rare disease, multiple hereditary exostosis, causes a lot of bone tumors. And so my whole life, I grew up with bumpy bones. And one of my favorite things about my artwork is that I have every skeleton with bumpy bones, because I want to start to normalize the bumpy bone for some MHE kids who have never seen anyone else with bumpy bones in their life. One thing that makes me feel so awesome is that I'm able to put my coloring books and my bumpy bone shirts and everything in care packages for MHE kids. And so I saw this one picture from a back to school picture of this little 6th grade boy wearing his bumpy bone proudly on his first day of school. And I actually cried because it's like, that's the representation that changes everything. And we're able to create that through art. And with digital art, it's like you don't have to think of yourself as an artist. The world is endless with digital art. So now I'm going to back out and we're going to start our little live presentation, because I just want to show you guys everything that's possible with digital art. So eventually we're going to get to that little sunset thing. But first, I just wanted to show you guys all of the different types of things that we can do. Because with digital art, it's not like art with pen and paper. There's an undo button. There's a zoom in. It's like you actually really can't mess it up because you can hit undo. You can copy and duplicate a layer, and then you can edit that layer. And if you don't like what you did, you didn't actually mess it up because you have another layer saved. So it's like, it really helps the perfectionist in you, because if you're anything like me, you probably don't do something if you think you won't be able to do it well enough. That's been something that's prevented me from actually being an artist most of my life, was that I didn't think I'd be able to do it well enough. I didn't think that I had the physical capability and the exertion and just the creativity even to do that. And so it's like with digital art, the possibilities are so endless. Let's start with a color purple. And so we'll start with just the basics. When you download Procreate, it's probably the best $10.99 you'll ever spend. It's like you don't actually have to spend more money to create art afterwards. Like if you're a painter, you always have to buy canvases, you always have to buy oil paints, you always have to buy thinners to clean out your brushes. But this is one little program that has these brushes already built in. The top half of my brushes, these are all of my extra brushes. So we're going to start at the beginning where everyone has these brushes when they download it. And so for inking, there are multiple different types of inkwork pens. And so you can do calligraphy. You can do different types of hand lettering. If you want to do any type of ink art, like Inktober just began October 1st. That's a really big thing in the ink art world. So if you ever wanted to just do black and white art or anything like that, the pens that they have already given to you are enough for you to be able to start to mess around with everything. This first one, you see, it's more of a dry brush. It's more one of those types of things you would see more of a antique type of look. And so now let's go for more of a bold look. The Studio Pen is one of my favorite just clean edge stuff right there. You can see it's a really clean edge. And I use that when I need to make sure that something is going to be fully erased. A lot of the drawing pens that I use are more eroded like the first one, but for my erasing pen, I make sure I use that for the clean edges. And let's do a dry ink. And so, of course, I'm going to be saying my most important message: ableism kills, because it's really important to remember how severe the ableist society really is, how much it's ingrained in our being, how much it actually affects us, how much it actually controls our lives. And this is all just messing around with just doodling. I'm not really a lettering artist per se. I just handwrite everything. I'm not that fancy with it. But there are some amazing Skillshare tutorials. If you like to doodle, you have a little gel pen type of thing. I don't like the way that looks personally. I don't like the gel pen. And so that's our inking pen. And the undo button is right over here. So again, you see if I don't like the way I wrote that, I can undo it. And then let's try a different thing. Let's go with that little cool one. I don't like the way that looks either, but that's okay. This is more of a layered thing. So it's transparent at first, and then you just gotta go over it more. And so that's like one thing that's really cool about so many of these brushes is they're all different, every single one of them. And you have to really get a feel for them, but then also you can really customize them on your own as well. And so going down here, we have some texture type of things. And it's like awesome too, because if you're not really familiar with drawing backgrounds or something like that, there are these patterns to where you can add these accents into your background. Like if you're trying to do coloring pages, for instance, you don't have to really be someone that has been doing art for a long time to try to make money off of art. You always have to start somewhere. Every artist starts somewhere, you know? And it's cool too because like you have a wood element if you wanted to create a, like if you're creating a wood thing, I don't know, but there's a lot of options. And so one of my favorite types of things to do with this is all of the extra brushes. And again, it's a one-time buy. You don't have to download them again. You don't have to keep rebuying your supplies. I use this one brush set called the Rusty Nib for everything I do with my ink work. So all of my drawings are used with a combination of this one ink pen called the Rusty Nib 1 and Waxy Nib. And so what I really like is that I will outline, I'll start with my line art. Do that. And what I do to do my shading is I start with a thick line. So we're just gonna do a little heart to be quick. And then after that, I go in with my eraser tool and I have it set to Waxy Nib and I shade by erasing the thick line. And for me, I feel like it kind of looks like this one type of ink art stamping where you engrave in a rubber stamp and it gives it that kind of effect. And so every thing that's drawn in Chronically Spooky, all of my line art and all of my shirts and just everything I do, this is the way I do it. And it's really awesome too because you're able to zoom in. Because if you were drawing with a pen and paper, you wouldn't be able to zoom in. You wouldn't be able to really get those close lines. You wouldn't be able to really get up close and personal without potentially smudging your art with your nose. So it's really awesome that like it really helps someone like me who I get double vision with my migraines at times. So being able to really zoom in and having a screen that has one of those blue light filters that filters out the blue light, it helps tremendously. So if your vision isn't that great, you can always just zoom in to do your work. And so it really helps out. And now let's see. One of my other favorite types of brushes is watercolor. And so I have already preloaded right here. This is one of the pages. It's art from one of the pages coming up in Chronically Spooky 2. It's a little bat and he's hanging off of a moon and it says hang in there. And so we're going to start to color a little bit of it. When I do a lot of my shading work, we call that rendering at times. I always use a watercolor brush. What color should the bat be? If anyone has any ideas for the colors, let me know in the comment box or in the chat box. I can never think about colors. I honestly probably use the same 6 colors in everything I do for some reason. So let's use a color palette. I download these like random color palettes. Orange, that sounds great. Let's do an orange. Here, this color palette right here has some orange, so we'll go with this one. And so what's really awesome about this is that it mimics watercolor. And so you see we have multiple different types of brushes, and then we have stuff that we'll use for smudging, and then we also have stamps too. And so with these stamps, it gives you the same effect as watercolors would. And so this is like a bloom effect to where if you would dip the tip of your brush into the water, it would create this little trail type of thing. And so it's awesome that you can create the realistic type of effects digitally. And so I've had people actually not realize that the art that I create is done digitally. I've been able to really create it to be so realistic. And that's kind of my goal. And I mean, it doesn't matter if something looks digital, but I like tricking people with that because I've never been able to use these types of mediums in this way before. And so we'll start right here with his little wing. And we have, oh, I didn't change my brush. I do that a lot. And so we're gonna start with an all-rounder brush, and we'll go right here. That's too big. You're always gonna be changing the size of your brush. That's one thing that I've learned is that what works in one part of the painting isn't gonna work in another part. And so with the watercolor one, just like we would with watercolor, like physical watercolors, you don't have to paint all over with the color. You're gonna use a blending water to fully shade it. And so right here, I have a wet accent and blending brush. And that's what I'm gonna use to really pull the color around. And so it's okay if it gets kind of like everywhere because we're going to be able to erase it. It's so much easier than it is with the physical paper because one of the hardest things with physical paper when you're doing watercolor is keeping that control and making sure that the watercolor stays where you want it to stay. It's so hard to actually get it to stay in those lines. So to be able to just color over it willy-nilly basically and be able to touch it up afterwards, it makes the stress of watercolor go away. It's actually relaxing to me now. And so we'll just continue to blend this out. And what I'm gonna do is make like an ombre type of effect. So we'll have a darker orange right here. And I don't know what color we'll do up here yet, but we're gonna make it fade like that. And so we'll just go back over it a little bit to get a more darker line. And I'm gonna make the blending tool a bit smaller so it's less spread out and more concentrated down here. And so we'll get close up so you can see. And it's really awesome with the wet blending brush tool. It's not just water, it's a wet accent blending brush. And so that's where you're getting these edges of the blooming effect as well, which it makes it more realistic to me. And it's really fun to just be able to continue to like slap down colors. And if you don't like the way it's looking, but you don't want to completely destroy it, you can save that layer and try it again. And maybe you realize you liked the orange before, you'll have it there. What's really cool about Procreate is you change the size of your canvas. So sometimes you can have a really big canvas, which will mean that you'll have a little amount of layers. With this canvas that we're working on, it's about a 2 by 3 inch canvas. So we can have up to 72 layers. So we have a lot of room to work with. And that makes it a lot less stressful when you're worried about messing up because you can just duplicate layers and they'll be there for when you think you did mess up. And so we're just going to continue with this. I saw there was a pink color, so we're going to add some pink. That's a great idea too, Erin. I'm going to put the pink at the top. We'll do the pink ombre to orange and see how that looks. And you notice with watercolor, I try to keep this on the same layer when it's in the same area. Just because that way you get a full type of blending like you would if it was a physical watercolor thing. And so just gonna blend that in. And we'll continue to layer on the colors to see how we like it. And so this is just the first layer. When you see a final colored product, like the one, for instance, that's on my shirt, this is something I've colored. This is multiple layers of different types of shading. So right here, this is just a normal shading. We're just doing a normal fill. After we do our normal fill, that's when we're gonna actually start shading with different blend layers. And so I'm just gonna do one more layer of pink up here, and then one more layer of orange right here. And then we're going to go to the next blend layer just so you can get a like a feel for how much it changes everything, because there are so many times when I'm creating something where I feel like giving up with the project, where I don't like it and I think it's not going to come out well, but then I have to remind myself that this is just the first layer and it's going to be something completely different once there's actually shading and once there's actually highlights. And so now we're going to go to our shading layer. And so right here, these are all of the different settings with different blend options. And that's what makes the difference with the shading, with the highlight, with everything. And so we're going to go to multiply. And this is the shading setting. And honestly, Nicole, I bet if you got Procreate, you would be able to learn how to draw, because that's how awesome it is. I never thought I could draw ever. Like, if you would have shown me this bat back in the beginning of 2020 and you told me I drew this, I would not have believed you at all. Like, I couldn't even draw a straight line. And so it's so amazing what Procreate can do and what you can do if you don't limit yourself to what you think you can do. Like if I continued to believe that I couldn't be an artist, I wouldn't be doing everything like I'm doing today. And it's like it's cheesy to say, but you just never know what could happen if you try. And so here we're at this layer for shading. And so I'm gonna put the same orange tone, just a little smaller at the bottom. And you notice how it's a different tone now. Because see, on this layer, it's a pumpkin orange right here. But right here, it's like a deeper red orange. And so that's because of the multiply layer that does the shading. And it's just so dynamic. That's what adds the depth. And so we're on the right layer. And we're just gonna blend this in. And with this one, I use smaller size brushes just because you wanna have that more defined shading. And so we're just gonna blend, blend, blend. And then let's put some more purple pink thing at the top. And again, you notice how it's a darker, more vibrant tone. And I'm gonna pull that down into the bottom as well. And then we're gonna blend. And it just changes all of the tone and the shading. It makes it more vibrant, in my opinion. Honestly, it's starting to look like sunset wings, and I think that's just so awesome. I feel like I'm in a sunset vibe because the next tutorial I have for you guys is also a sunset, so that's pretty cool. But anyway, so we're going to continue to shade this, and I really love this corally color right here at the edge, if you see it. So I kind of want to get more of that. And what's so cool about digital art is that as you go along, you're going to find out so many more things that you like, and it's just going to transform into a way that you just never would have imagined. And the tools that I'm using, because I forgot to introduce the tools I'm using an iPad, and I have a Apple Pencil. And so I have a 7th generation iPad, so I got to get the first Apple Pencil. It matters what iPad you have to what pencil you have. And what's really cool about these is if you need a pencil grip to be able to like hold a pencil better, or to be able to grip better, or anything like that, you can put those pencil grips or whatever you use to help you write on it. So it's not like something where it's something that you can't modify to your needs, which I think is really awesome too. And so let's get back to blending. Gonna blend that. And you don't have to make it perfect. Like I'm actually trying to get some splotches in here, because if you think back to what watercolor looks like, you kind of want it to be splotchy. That's kind of what the layering in it is. So I'm gonna pull some orange and bring it up towards the top of our pink. And just blend that out. And so you notice right here, it looks like we need more color in the middle of this stuff. So let's go back to our bottom fill layer and let's put this light pink here as well as this light orange, just so we can get more tone in there. And I'm gonna make my blend brush a little bit bigger. Blend that. And then now I'm gonna go back to this and we're gonna put more darker purple shading to get more of the vibrant purple up top, because I think the bottom looks good. There's nice vibrancy with it, but we'll just go a little bit down like that. And yeah, and so I could go all day showing you guys this stuff, so I'm gonna move on now with the next thing, but that's like a little bit of what you can do with digital art. And I'm gonna keep doing the sunset wings with this bat, and so eventually once this is actually done, it's gonna look really awesome. And so I'm just gonna hide that right there. And so now this is a demo I'm really excited to show you guys. So what's really awesome about digital art is you can recreate the types of normal mediums, you know, like oil paints, acrylics, pastels, watercolor, but you can also do so much more. Like one of my favorite brush sets is this one that's a galaxy brush set from Alina Jensen. A lot of the brushes I use is from Elena Jensen. She is one of my favorite brush artists ever, and she makes such realistic brushes. Like all of my art activism posts from my alcohol ink, which we'll get to that eventually, those are all from Elena Jensen. And it's just, I love all of the dynamicness of it. And so we're gonna do a little galaxy tutorial now. And this is one of my designs that I've been working on for a while. I kind of put it to the back burner when I was working on my book. And it's a moon candle that's going to be melting into the galaxy. And so we're going to work on these little drips over here. And we're going to make all of those little drips a galaxy. And so what's really cool about Procreate is it gives us this ability to create these things called clipping masks, which means that we can limit our paint to this one section. So even if we're going beyond the lines, the clipping mask makes it be in this one area. So we're going to create a clipping mask really quick. And the way I do that is I just use white, and I'm going to fill with, we're going to go to our little studio pen. And because it's the clean lines, that's why I'm using the studio pen. We're going to fill the little drip area with white. And so that's going to confine our galaxy, and also it's going to give a pure background to the colors of the galaxy. So it's going to be a little bit more vibrant than if we were to keep the watercolor paper. Because if you notice, the background is actually a textured watercolor paper, which makes all of the art look even more realistic. I don't personally like using white on the back of my backgrounds, just because I like the paper look. But there's so many different types of canvas textures too. There's paint canvas textures, there's different types of paper textures. The possibilities literally are so endless when it comes to Procreate. And so we're just going to fill this, and I'm going to clean up these lines because that's going to make the difference with the galaxy. So we're gonna have all of that. Yeah, we'll have the back be the galaxy. I don't know how I'm gonna blend it yet, but that's okay. We'll figure that out at some other point. So we'll drip that down. And so I'm a little messy just to get this all lined out, but that's okay because I'm going to go back and erase it. And so we're going to pick the same brush, the studio pen, because it has that clean line, and just go and erase real close. And see, because we're able to zoom in, it's a lot easier to be able to get down to these tiny little details. I guess you can see a lot more details with digital art just because you can zoom in, but that's also awesome because you can add so many more little details than you would be able to. So we're just gonna erase this real quick. And the reason I do this too is just because it looks a lot neater. Sometimes you might be overwhelmed by the mess of the process. I know I get overwhelmed by the mess of the process, and that means I can't really see what's gonna be coming out of it. And so to be able to have clean lines to know, okay, well, this is exactly where the galaxy is going to be. It really helps me keep track of designs. And what's really cool too is we're able to create anything. It doesn't matter if this art doesn't exist before, or if other people don't do it a certain way, or if it's never been done. That's why we're artists, you know, to create what's never been done. And we have that power to do it. With digital art, it's like it gives us a accessible tool to be able to do that. Like, I'm able to paint in my bed in the dark when I normally wouldn't be able to do anything else. So it's just something that it gives us so much more power, I guess. And so now we have our white little background, and I'm going to do a clipping mask. And so now what that does is it keeps everything to that white background. And so now we're going to go to our galaxy brushes. And what's so awesome is we can create the galaxy. I'm thinking bright colors just because it's one of those days. So let's pick out a bright palette. Colorful Nebula is one of my favorite ones, so we'll go with that. We'll start with a teal. Oh, okay. I clicked on the wrong brush. I didn't want shooting star. Okay, this one's called Nebula 6, and so we'll see what that does. And basically what you want to do is you just mess around with it. It's so fluid that every little movement will change something. And so see, it looks like it's better to start out with darker brushes than with lighter brushes. So lesson learned, we'll start out with dark. Let's go to this green. And if it doesn't work, you just can hit undo. We'll go to another brush and see how this works. And again, with this, there's a bunch of layers that go into it. So this is just our base layer. We're gonna do a shading layer, then we'll do a highlight layer, and then honestly, I'll probably do more than that. All of my work has at least 3 separate shading and 3 separate highlighting layers, just because that's how you can get the most dynamic look to something. Everything's always dimensional. It's never just one shine on something, you know? And so let's try a different layer. Let's see about doing a multiply layer. Let's see how that looks with it. Yeah, and so now see, we got more of a vibrant color, like a darker color. So we'll start adding some of that. Let's go to Nebula 8. Let's see about a purple. Maybe that's what it's missing. Yeah, that's what it was missing. And so yeah, we just keep messing around with everything that you're doing. Nothing is ever, you know, perfect, and nothing ever has to be perfect. And so that's something that I really had to come to terms with as an artist, is that perfect is something that's unattainable. And that's not why I do what I do. I do what I do because it makes me feel better about myself. It makes me feel like there's a reason to everything that I've gone through. Because, you know, it can be traumatic at times going through life disabled in an ableist society. We have to deal with so many different barriers, there's so many different elements, there's so many different obstacles that are completely out of our control, and it's like very traumatic, you know? Like, personally for me, I live life with an invisible disability, so I've experienced times where people who have never even heard of my diagnosis have been questioning my diagnosis as if I'm lying about it. And it's like, it's so many, it's so much that if I didn't get those emotions out, I don't know how I would be able to deal. I don't know how I would be able to live. And being able to create art that speaks this stuff is something that has been life changing. And it's like, yeah, right now we're coloring a galaxy, but there's some times when I'm writing art about how the ableist society constantly oppresses us, or how medical gaslighting is going to kill somebody, or how disability pride is the answer to the dismantlement of the ableist society. It's like, with art, you can cover so many topics, and it speaks in ways that other people can be receptive to too. It's like, is it really a personal attack on somebody if it's just something that it's like out there, and that it's like a beautiful work of art? And so that's been something that's really been helpful for me personally in my experience, because before I was able to communicate in art, I was constantly having to justify why I was feeling discriminated against, or why ableism wasn't okay. And so it's like, with art, we're able to really say that to people without them having to take it personally. Because for some reason, they always take it personally, even if you're talking about how you were discriminated against. But that's okay, that's a different story. And so now I want to show you guys one of my art activism types of things. If anyone has anything that they would like me to write about or anything, let me know in the comments or in the chat as I do this, because this will be available for anyone in attendance afterwards. They just have to ask for it, and they'll get a print of this. So I'll send them a digital copy of it. So if anyone ever wants it, just let me know. But this is going to be a little demonstration of how I create my art activism posts. This is my alcohol ink brush set, which was created by Alina Jensen, who, again, amazing artist. Highly recommend all of her brushes. And we'll stick with the color theme that of like teals and purples and stuff. And so with this, I always start with a multiply layer, just because it makes it look darker and it gives it more of a depth. And so these brushes really have a life of their own, and you just go with them. You don't control them, they control you. And so I just basically look for shapes in them that I like, and how the lines are. Because what I do afterwards is I like to go over the lines with little glitter line art type of thing. So if the lines look okay, then I'll use that. Sometimes you have to really mix it around the page too. We'll have this one go in the corner like that. And we'll move this over here. And what I do with this too is I will make layers of the splashes, because sometimes there'll be a splash that looks really good, and then I would mess it up because I put a different one that didn't look good on top of it, and then I undid it too many times and it just disappeared. So I just do different layers now, so I can move them around, I can hide them and see what works and what doesn't. And so now we're going to do a different color. And what's really awesome about these brushes too is they change color as you twist the pen. So that's what's so cool about having an Apple Pencil versus having a different stylus or a different drawing type of tool, is the Apple Pencil has a sensitive touch to where if you tilt it a certain way, it changes the color as you go. And so, for instance, this brush has a red violet and a purple violet, like a blue violet type tone to it. The other brush had a green and a blue one. Um, and so, yeah, we're just gonna keep seeing how it looks. I really like the tones of this one, but I don't like how it really fell. So we're gonna hide that, but save it for later in case I want to go back to it. Um, so we're just gonna keep doing it. I kind of like the way that shape looks. And yet this is, again, how it is. Just keep going and messing around with different things. And I kind of like how it's taking like a semicircle shape, but I don't know. We'll keep trying. I'm gonna clear that one. Something about it. And yeah, so we're just gonna keep going, keep chugging along. And with all of this stuff too, it's really like I don't feel the need that I have to sell my art, or like that's not why I started my art. I started art because I really needed something to help me cope with all of the stress in life. And don't get me wrong, I see mental health professionals. I go to therapy, I have a psychiatrist, and I still need something else. You know, it's like that sometimes it's definitely not enough. And so for me, having art was my therapy, and having something that I can just zone out in and just like focus on colors, focus on shades, not have to worry about deadlines, not have to worry about all of the things going on in the world. It's like to have this type of distraction, it really helped me so much. Prior to my time, or prior to my big start of my art career, I actually worked in the news. I was a broadcast television director for almost 8 years, and I lost my career due to disability discrimination. After fighting for my career for like over 2 months because they tried to fire me for advocacy work, they just wound up firing me saying I lied about my disability. And so that was a really hard thing for me to get over. It still is really hard for me, honestly. And being able to create something out of that darkness has really given me a light that I look for. I don't know if I would be able to really deal with all of those heavy emotions if I didn't have my art activism, because we all need something that's a little bigger than ourselves, and something that we can really pour ourselves into, that doesn't judge us, that isn't going to tell us what we did wrong, that isn't going to tell us what we should be doing. The worst word in the world is should be, especially in relation to our lives in an ableist society. We live in a society where the disabled is treated as disposable, and that it's normal to be discriminatory of the disabled. It's normal to have them inherently excluded from everything. What's not normal is to be inclusive of the disabled, to be fully accessible, to be someone that actually actively fights for disability rights. And so it's like to be able to use a coping mechanism that helps me in a way that I can also try to fight for my rights too. It's a lot, and it means a lot to me, because it's like otherwise I don't know how I'd be able to communicate. Yeah, we're storytellers, you know, yeah, we can write blogs, but the reality is when we write something, the ableist society expects it for free. When we are doing our advocacy work, it's like the ableist society always expects that from us. And for me, I just like being able to have something more than just what the ableist society expects from me. And to be able to have something that can cross generations. Art's eternal, you know, and especially digital art. It's like it's always going to be there. It's always going to be there to unite us. It's always going to be there to share our culture. Aaron's presentation talks a lot about disabled culture, and it's like I feel like art is so essential to disabled culture because we can create our own culture. You know, it's like we create what our culture is. Like we have that power, and the artists, the storytellers, the performers, like all of us that create types of art, we're the ones that have that power to control our narrative for the first time. And digital art makes it accessible to us. It's like if you don't think you're a drawer, if you don't think that you can be an artist, I really challenge you to eventually look into a form of digital art. It sometimes it can be inaccessible just because of the price point for an iPad, which is totally understandable. Luckily, there are other forms of digital art. There are other types of tablets. There are other types of programs that are similar to Procreate that do make digital art accessible if you can't get an iPad. And it's like with digital art, you have these amazing capabilities to where you can have your reference in your layer, to where you can look right at your picture, to where you can help yourself learn how to draw through having this there. It's really awesome. And then just imagine the representation that you would be creating and how much better you would feel about yourself too. Like for me, every time I create something, I just feel like I'm more fulfilled. Like I did something awesome. Okay, let's go to the next one. And maybe that's just because I'm addicted to productivity, but it really does it does a lot for me more than just making myself feel better. It's like having something where I can see where my time went and where I don't have to think about the pain that I'm in, and I don't have to really think about all of the things that's happened to me. It's everything. And so I really like these colors. So I'm going to merge these two layers down and keep them together. And then there's another type of alcohol brush that I like to use on top of this before I start my line art. And so we're going to go to this one. And I really like this because it looks like a web of things. And Erin, I love that. We create our own power. I think that is such a perfect quote that I will be quoting you with for this artwork. And then I'll send it to you afterwards because I love that. And so yeah, this is like a lace work type of brush. And it just adds a little extra details that will look really cool when you get to draw over them. And I mean, I just like geometric aspects that are in it as well. And so these are the alcohol brushes by Alina Jensen. And she like really created a realistic type of alcohol brush. Alcohol inks were always a type of art that was inaccessible to me. The smell of the alcohol was just way too much for me as someone who has migraine disorder. And so like I literally cried when I saw this brush set in the beginning of the summer last year. Like it was everything because it was an actual alcohol brush set that actually looked like alcohol brush, like alcohol ink. And it wasn't just stamps. It was like a dynamic thing where I can actually create customized looks. So I was just so happy. And so you see with this, I really like how this little triangle type of little semicircle looks. So I'm gonna leave this here for now. We'll see. I'm kind of not sold on how deep of a color it looks, but it's okay. We'll just play with it. So I'm gonna change to a teal and see if we can get a good type of color up here. And then after I do this part, then I go to splash effects because I have this one brush set that it's extra splash details. and that just makes it look a little more realistic. Because again, I just try to make it look as real as I can, because it's kind of a little challenge for myself if I can trick people into thinking that this was, physical ink. And so you see right here, I like this little lace work stuff, so I'm gonna leave that. And so I think we got a nice little color going. And I'm going to merge all of these layers. And now we're going to mess around with splash effects. And because I love these colors and I don't want to mess them up, I'm going to duplicate this layer and I'm going to hide it. And so that makes my perfectionist in me feel a little bit better, because I know that layer is going to be there if I mess up. And so we're going to go to my little splash, ironically named Splash. This is where I have a bunch of really cool splash details. This is one of my favorite ones called Cruddy Drops. And what it does is it mixes these colors together in a way that I just like the detail a lot. I'm gonna make my screen a little bit brighter. Okay, and so you see some of them, it doesn't look good. But then other times it has a really cool striped effect. So you see right here, it has a really cool striped effect. But I don't like the way that looks, so I'm gonna have to redo that. So that's a, I don't like that one either. And so this is probably half of the time I spend is just pressing down, waiting for cool drops. Okay, that's a really cool drop. So we're gonna leave that there. And it's just like, it's really fun for me to be able to zone out on these colors. One of my ways of distracting myself if I'm in a panic attack is I pull out shades of colors of things that are around me. So it's like, what type of colors would I need to mix together to make that happen? And so to be able to see like all of the colors and be able to pick out my own shades and see how they mix together, it's really just such a great distraction for me. We're all different with what helps us cope, but if you like art and if you're a creative type of person, I really do think that Procreate is just going to be so great for you. And so see, we're going to be splashing more. Maybe make it a bit bigger. And there's more splash effects than just this one. I just got to get maybe one up here before we move on to that, just so it looks a little more balanced with the composition. And it's really cool too, because you can pull out from the canvas, and so you can splash in white into the art as if it was like alcohol poured on top of that. And so it's just another little minute detail that makes it look a little more realistic. So I really like that splash up at top. So we're gonna move on to a different splash now. Go back to that brush set. And so this one is called the little spatter. And so this one just does your normal ink type of spatter. It's not as bold as the other one is, but it looks as if it's the water dripped like that. So we're just gonna add that in a little bit around. And so you don't wanna go overboard with the splash. You just wanna make sure it looks cohesive with the composition. So I just wanna add like something right here. It just needs something. Okay, we'll go with that. And then one of the last things I always add in is fingerprint blend. And so it's like you can make it look as if you accidentally touched it or you wanted to blend with your fingers. And so I always do a little bit of fingerprint accents here and there. And now we'll go to the writing part. And so we're going to use what Erin said. We create our own power. I'm going to move this down here. And so what I do to help me write better is I have this little grid. because I handwrite everything, and so having this grid helps me keep everything balanced, especially when I never write straight ever. So we're gonna go back to the rusty nib. And my favorite writing brush is called the Rube pen. I don't even know what it's named after, but I just love it. And so we'll start at the top. Let's see, 3. And I'm gonna put them on each separate lines just because it's not that many words, and that way we can just see how we can play it around with it. See, that one wasn't a straight line. And so I just love the digital art and that I can undo stuff. It helps so much. Like if I'm writing something physically down now, I always try to hit undo. Um, when does this end? Does it end at 5? It's been a long day. um, but yeah, I'm gonna just continue this real quick. I will try to wrap this up real fast. We create. If anyone has any question, okay, I'm good till 5:30. Awesome. Ha! You guys are still stuck with me for a little bit. And now I can rewrite that. And if anyone has any questions or anything like that, just write them in the chat box. I'm trying to keep up with everything. So we create. I'll probably put our own on one line. We'll see how it works. Move this over a little bit so I can fit them all on one line. Gonna move it over just a little bit more. And it's really awesome too when you are working in Procreate. It'll have these little blue lines that helps keep you all aligned. So it's good reference points. So like, for instance, when I was moving this, it helps me keep on the same line. So all of these letters will be basically in the right area. I try to remind myself that since it doesn't have to be perfect, because no one has to be perfect, ever. So we create our own, and now let's do power, and let's make power a little prettier. So I'm gonna make it a bit bigger. Like I'm adding a little accent thingy. I don't know, just seeing how it looks. Power. Just gotta move this over so we can fit the R. That line just would not work. Okay, that's okay. We'll go with that. Just scoot that over. There, we create our own power. And so now the last thing that we got to do is before we align everything, we have to go in and do all of the line art. So I'm going to combine these words just so I can move them all out of the way. And then make another layer and put this above the color. And so I think it might be cool to do a metallic purplish color. So we're going to go to the foil liner brush and that's with the Alina Jensen's Amazing Alcohol ink set. So let's try this purple. See how this looks. I don't really like that one. Let's see how this one looks. No, I don't like that one either. My husband's not here to tell me if this color is okay, so you just have to bear with me. I always ask him to tell me if the colors look okay, because for some reason I need a second opinion. I think this blue one looks okay, so we're gonna go with that one. And so with this, I always I start off with doing a line that kind of like loops around. And so I use the lines within the ink art to base where I go. So I'm gonna start right here and then just try and flow with it. And as I do this, I avoid things that are already shaped. Like this thing right here, I avoid that because I'm gonna want to do something different with that. And so with this, I loop around it, making these little shapes. I don't know, crescents? I don't know what you call them. They like vary. And so I just make it kind of like a little chain effect. I don't like the way this one came out, so we're gonna reset real quick and do it over. And again, that's the best thing about digital art is you can just redo it. So just gonna fix that. And now we will go in and draw little lines in that. And if you hear any weird noise, that's just my service dog. She's pouting in bed. You're so funny. She's so cute. And so after I do this foil, I go back in with a glitter pen and then I add glitter everywhere. This is like a 4-step thing for the glitter part. Just because I think the metallic shiny stuff. So we're gonna keep going. Almost there. Now we're on our final one. Okay, and so now that we got that little part done, we're gonna go over to our glitter sketch pen. This is from the Glitter Rush pack from Alina Jensen. And so now I'm just gonna go into these, oh, that was way too big. And so now I'm just gonna go into these little shapes and outline all of the ones that I see. It's like, I don't even know what to call these shapes either, but there's crescents around and there's like these little thingies, like whatever that is. And I just go in and line them with glitter. And then after I find all the shapes, that's when I just connect everything and line everything with glitter. So like this we've lined, but probably not as big. Do like that. So just go around and add these. I'm going to try and do this as quick as I can because I want to finish this within 5:30 so everyone will see the full thing. So try and get this done as quick as we can. And so it's really cool too, because you see we have these lines right here that I like to outline. And this is how I do all of my art activism posts, because I do a lot of different types of character designs, ink art. I do tattoo commissions, logo arts. Erin and I did this really awesome Power and Pride design for the Disability Pride Month celebration we had. And but with the art activism specifically, I always do colors and words. That way I don't take away from the message and the impact of everything. But really it's like art activism, it could be anything. If you don't want to draw, Canva is another form of digital art. It's graphic design, and that's something that is accessible to everyone. There's a free version. There is also an upgraded version that you can upgrade to, but the free version at least teaches you how to do graphic design with that, and it's really awesome. You can create marketing graphics, you can learn social media marketing and content creation through that, which you can then make a career off of. Freelancing really has like changed a lot of the game when it comes to disability employment, and the fact that we have these apps that make these skills accessible to us is amazing. And so I definitely highly recommend, like, if you've ever been thinking about content creation is an accessible form of art. You get to create the representation that has been really lacking in the world. And it's like you can really learn a life skill that you can create a career off of. A lot of people in the industry, I've noticed, at least in the networks that I'm in, are looking for disabled creators to have their voices on the team, and to just start to recognize the importance of including the disabled in the workforce. So I definitely, again, highly recommend, if you've ever considered it, definitely dip your toes in that. It's something you will not regret, for sure. So we're finishing up the little glitter lining filigree thing. And one thing that's really important about having accessible art too is being able to describe that accessible art. Oh, sorry guys. There we go. I make sure all of my posts on Instagram are fully described. All of my art has alt text and in-depth image descriptions. Because again, while the art form is accessible to us, if we don't describe what we created, is it accessible to others in our community? And so every form of art that I actually put out, like, publicly, is fully described. In my coloring books, there is alt text on the back of each page, even though it's a physical coloring book. And it's just important to always try, if you can, to describe the work that you make, just because we want everyone to be able to enjoy it. And if you don't have the energy or the capacity to, there are groups on social media that are created just to help create an accessible content for people. So you put your content in that group and they will create the description for you. So it's a really awesome resource for anyone who needs it. So we're just putting these last little touches over here. And so now that we're done with our glitter lining, there's 2 more steps, and this one's going to be done. First, we're going to go to our metallic ink splatter, and we're just going to put big flakes of glitter. And I just touch it randomly, just wherever it might look good. Sometimes it doesn't look good, like that one didn't look good. But that's what the undoes button's for. And so finally, after we do our big flakes of glitter, we do our little flakes of glitter. Just put that all over. And now we have to change the order to see how this looks better. So let's see, let's put power right here. And I'm thinking it probably will look best to center a line. So we'll center a line based off of power. And you see, it's really cool. There, those are those blue lines I was talking about. The skew bar tells me that that's center. So we'll go with that. This right there. And then we're going to put we on the top. And let's see how that looks. What do you guys think? I don't know. Kind of looks off balance to me. Maybe we have to move some stuff around. Write this down. I'm going to duplicate that so I don't mess it up. And let's see if we put this on the bottom, if that's going to make it look better. I think maybe that's the solution. Yeah, I think that might be better. And then let's put this. Thank you, Erin, for this quote because I think it's awesome. And I think that looks actually a lot better than having the splash in the corner. And so again, if anyone wants a print of this, that anyone in attendance is more than welcome to having a digital print for this. Just let us know and I will get one to you. And let's see, what time is it? We have around 15 minutes left. So if there's any questions or anything that anyone would like to know, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, I will still keep painting for you guys until time is up. So if you guys are cool with that, so am I. Just gonna put this, we're gonna move this up here, have that underneath right there, because artists always have to sign their stuff. So we're gonna put that right there. And then that's done. So I'm going to move all of these to have this in one group. Perfect. And so now this is what we just created. And now we'll spend the last time together painting a sunset. What's really awesome is that, again, there are so many different types of mediums. So in the last 15 minutes, I would love to show you guys a quick demonstration of a few of them. And Erin, I think my favorite piece I have ever made is probably in my book coming up in Chronically Spooky. There's a few of them actually. Yeah, I love the Disabled Grim Reaper. That's one of the OGs that I've made. I have this mirror in Chronically Spooky 2 that I'm really excited for. I also have a little raccoon in a trash can I'm excited for. He's cool. On average, it can take me anywhere from about an hour to 3 hours to create my art activism posts. If I'm creating something that is not like that, like if I'm working on a design, then that will take me exponentially a lot more. I have spent anywhere from an hour, from like a few hours to over 150 hours on one piece. So a lot of people sometimes have a misconception of digital art to where it's not real art or a computer does it, but I promise you, everything's hand drawn just like it would be for a something on pencil or something on paper, anything like that. And so for this, I want to show you guys, we have a soft streaky palette and we have a really pretty sunset. And so what's really cool about Procreate is we can pull colors from our references if our references are in layers in the canvas. There's an option to have reference on the side, but I prefer to have it inside the canvas. That way it doesn't lag. And then also we can pull colors. So we're going to do this in this little block area. So this is a palette knife. And so this is recreating an oil type of paint. And so we're just going to color pick to get this colors quicker. And there's just like so much to play with digital art. No one even has to see the stuff, you know. There's so many things that a lot of you have never seen that I've made just because I was messing around with like palette knives or like different landscapes that I feel like a little insecure with my abstract type of stuff yet like this, so I don't really show people it as much. And so like you don't have to show people your art. You can just do art for yourself. And that's the biggest thing that I would want people to take away from today is that art is whatever you want to make it. Art's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be something that makes you feel a little bit better. It's supposed to be something that adds to the world and that like makes you feel what you want to feel, like positivity. If it makes you like, you shouldn't have to feel like you're competing with anybody. You shouldn't have to feel like you have to be better than anybody or that other people's work is better than yours, so you just shouldn't even try. There are so many insecurities that prevent us from really thriving in the world. Um, and so really it's like, if you've ever wanted to try to do art in any way, I think digital art would be so perfect for people because they can try so many different mediums. You can try so many different things. You see, this is our palette knife type of thing. Just looking for the pan. There we go. We can start to blend it. I like the choppiness that the palette knife gives. And it's just really cool that we can recreate that digitally. And so let's go to a next type of thing. Let's do this in watercolor. I'm gonna do clipping mask just to make it, you know, easier and clean lines. And so again, we're gonna pull from over here just to get the quick colors. And with this, I'm just doing these lines so quick because I'm gonna take my water brush and blend it. So it doesn't even really have to be anything. It just needs to get that color on there basically. And then we'll worry about shapes and how we do everything. Since this is the background, I'm going to be putting color everywhere. And then once we start doing more details, that's when I'll start using color just for accents. So we got that. So let's go to our blending. We're going to be doing the wet accent blending brush. So just to move this around, I'm going back and forth just to get the sky blended and like everything with the base. And so once we start to add to it, that's when again we'll do different types of gestures. And so to me, the watercolor, honestly, the brushes are so much easier to use because it's so much easier to already form the mountains. You already see them forming. And this is just like the base of what we were doing. So I have more experience with the watercolors to where I'm more comfortable with watercolor. But if like I've seen from different artists who have experience with physical mediums, they are more confused with the digital mediums just because there's so much that goes into it. But it's just really fun to play around with it, and there's so much to really learn by doing it all. It's gonna let's put more dark over there. And if you want to connect with my art in any way, you can follow me on Instagram. My account is, oh, I took it out. Hold on. Yeah, there it is. My account is at Art Advocate, r.a.r.e.advoc8. I share a lot of my art activism there. And that's where you can also find links to my store, where you can find a lot of my art on shirts, different merchandise type of stuff. My Chronically Spooky collection is about to go to Chronically Spooky 2. So very excited. Soon there's going to be a lot more additions to my store based off of Chronically Spooky 2 coming out next week or in 2 weeks. I can't give myself that type of deadline. But yeah, and also you can find the link to Chronically Spooky on Amazon, which is my first coloring book, Chronically Spooky. And you can always, you can message me if you ever need any advice with art, if you ever wanted any recommendations for any brushes, anything like that. Because again, digital art is something that can really be life-changing, and if I can help anyone get to learn digital art, I would love to do that. Yeah, I'm hoping the second book will be coming out in around 2 weeks. I finally finished drawing all the pages. I'm working on the back cover now and trying to get that together, and then once I do that, I'll be formatting. And so there's 33 pages. So, which is over 10 more than what was included in Chronically Spooky 1. And symbolic too, because 33 is the number of possibility of all things possible. And so it really, it's like an important number to me. So I'm really excited that I was able to do 33 pages. But yeah, that'll be coming out soon within the next few weeks. It's perfect for spooky season, but also perfect for any time, honestly, because it's always spooky season when you have a chronic illness, between all of the medical gaslighting, the ableism, everything, honestly, the symptoms that we live with. So it's always something. And we have 7 minutes left. So if there's any more questions or anything, if everyone's just happy watching me paint a sunset, I'm happy with that. So this is the watercolor. And with the watercolor, it just flows so much better to me anyway. I like being able to see all of the textures with it. But I like having the control over the texture. Whereas with the palette brush, while there was a lot of texture, I didn't really have control over that. So this is our watercolor. And so let's try one more. So in our paint release section, we also have oil paints, we have acrylic paints, we have gesso. So let's do acrylic. So we'll do thick acrylic. We'll just start color picking. So again, I'm gonna do in lines, and you see the thick texture. It's really awesome that's how I can recreate this texture. Like, I'm just gonna nerd out real quick over that, because I just love textures. I'm the type of person that if I see crushed velvet, I just have to touch it. Textures are one of my things. So I just love how this lets us recreate it. And I'm also gonna try and like get some mountain swoops in this one as we're making it, just because I want to try and do less blending and more building of colors with it. We'll see if that works. It looks like it's going to, but we'll see. So we're just gonna rolling type of mountains. Then after we get this dark mountain, we will go to the sky. Just fill the rest of this. Yeah, so we got some defined mountains on that. So now we're going to go to the sky. I just like love the brightness of these clouds. I've always loved sunsets. So when I was in middle school, I remember I did a science fair project on sunsets. I've always loved them. Like all of the bright, warm colors. You just never see them anywhere like you can see them in a sunset like this. Okay, so we have our base down with this. So now let's try and put in some detail. Let's start with the clouds this time. So you see with this, all of the textures are just completely different from each other. And it's like the possibilities are just so endless. You can really learn so much. So let's go to our blending, thick acrylic. And so I'm going to be doing a little blending, but I'm trying not to lose the consistent texture. If I don't like it, we can always just undo it. So that's the beauty of digital art. It makes, like, I think the fact that we have the undo feature makes digital art so accessible to people like myself who would never consider art because of the fear of failure. I feel like a lot of us have that fear of failure, even if we don't like to acknowledge the fear of failure. I'm trying to be a little bit better at holding myself accountable for that fear of failure. Just because, again, we're our worst enemies when it comes to that. Like, we don't really truly know what we're capable of until we try. So, like, when we say we can't do something, we hold ourselves back from so much. And when it comes to digital art, you don't really have to have so many paintbrushes. You can have one Apple Pencil, and you can make that Apple Pencil accommodating to whatever you need. If you need pencil grips, if you need any support with it, it's something that you don't have to change the support on every single paintbrush that you use. It's one thing. And so that really helps out a lot too. And so just blending this, I'm actually really liking the way that the clouds are looking. I don't know, it's actually looking like a really cool blend. So I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. But it's just something that, again, if you've ever wondered about doing it, if you can do it, you can definitely do it. I think you should try to do it and just see how it makes you feel. I promise you, you will learn some amazing stuff about yourself. You will feel empowered. You will be able to really expand your horizons with life just by giving yourself a shot and seeing if you can do something. Yeah, definitely need to get Procreate if you can. It's such an amazing program. I do think Procreate got me through the darkest time of my life, when I got canceled by my friends, when I lost my career. Like, it was such a dark time. But Procreate really changed everything. So definitely, if you've been considering it, if you have an iPad and you can get Procreate, definitely get Procreate. Oh man, I thought this eyeshadow was way too bright, but it matches the sunset, so it works. um, but I guess we're getting closer to 5:30. So I just want to thank everyone for just coming here, spending time with me. Hi, Robert. Thank you guys for just watching me paint and just spending your afternoon with me here. I really appreciate it. And if anyone has any questions or anything, just let me know before we sign off. And I'm just going to continue to blend the sky. It matches my eyeshadow though, so it's okay. And yeah, again, the most challenging thing about creating digital art, that would probably be getting over myself and getting over what I think I can't do, because there's so many times where, like, for instance, the Power and Pride design, I thought it would be too hard to do a power wheelchair. And honestly, that's one of my favorite designs I've ever done, was the power wheelchair. It's like I was scared from the challenge, but once I started doing it, it was like I felt so proud of myself. So I think the biggest factor with that is just getting over the fear of not being able to do it. Yeah, power and pride. Just add some clouds. What would I recommend for beginners? I would definitely recommend to start off with the basic type of brushes that you get, and once you feel a little more confident, because I started to really thrive with Procreate once I started to find brushes that I liked. So I started off with the basics, but I didn't really start the vibe until I found the brand that I liked the best. And so the way I was able to do that was through the communities. I joined a lot of art communities, so I would definitely recommend that any beginner to digital art join the digital art communities on Facebook, like the Procreate learners. There's another Procreate group that was made by Visual Timmy. That's a really good one. That's where I got like the most advice from other artists on different brushes and everything like that. And really what I would recommend from beginners most is not to compare your work to people who have been doing it for longer. Because it's like we see so many amazing art that's done by other people, and we wonder why we can't get to that level. And so with being a beginner, you just can't get discouraged that your art doesn't look a way that you want it to look. Just watch a bunch of tutorials. Skillshare is a really good resource too, and I think you can actually get some free videos on Skillshare. But even if you can't, there's some great ones on YouTube. And the brush creators, like Elena Jensen, for instance, she creates a bunch of tutorials using her brushes. So that's also a really good way to learn, as well as from the artists themselves. Um, and I don't know if it's past time yet, so I am continuing to just shade, I guess, the sky and everything. I guess it's not blending. I mean, not shading. We're actually blending. And so what I'm doing here is just really evening out some of the texture. Oh, I would love to make art classes, honestly, one day when I have time. That would be amazing. Like, that would be a pretty awesome thing to do, is to be able to teach art. I'm excited for once Chronically Spooky comes out, I'm going to be able to start coloring again. Like, this is the first time I'm working with color since July. So very excited.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions before we wrap this up? Just want to say from GMSS, thank you so much, Marie. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. And thank you for just showing us this amazing talent that you have. This was a fantastic session, just absolutely fantastic. And I couldn't turn my eyes away. So I just want to say thank you personally and from GMSS.
Oh, thank you.
We really
I
appreciate it.
appreciate that. And I'll just end off on, we'll have our little art thing, and if you want a digital copy of this, just let us know and we'll get you one.
Great.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you so much.